I'm sorry, I zoned out. I wasn't staring. I wasn't. First off, I want to clarify, she is not mommy, she is mother. And without further ado, let's get into Mother's moveset. Her basic attack deals ice damage to a single target enemy. Her talent makes it so that when she reaches 2 stacks of syzygy, she enters the spectral transmigration state, which advances her action and increases her crit rate by a minimum of 40% and a maximum of 50%. Which is OP. In this state, her skill is enhanced and is the only move available for her. Also, she will consume HP from all allies when attacking, and her attack stat will increase proportionately to the consumed HP. This state ends when she runs out of stacks of syzygy. Her skill deals ice damage to a single target enemy and will make her gain 1 stack of syzygy. Her enhanced skill deals ice damage to a single target enemy and proportional ice damage to adjacent targets. This will consume a stack of syzygy, but not skill points. Her ultimate deals ice damage to a single target and proportional amount of ice damage to adjacent targets. After this attack ends, she gains a stack of syzygy. Her technique creates a dimension around her that inflicts freeze on all enemies within range during its duration. When entering combat, she regenerates energy and gains a stack of syzygy with a 100% base chance to freeze enemies. Her unlockable traces are, first, her effect res increasing when she's in her spectral transmigration state, 2, after using her regular skill, her next action will be advanced forward, and 3, while in her special state, her ultimate damage will increase. It's also important to note that her additional traces will bring her to 37.3% crit damage, and will bring her speed to 105. Her skill is the utmost priority because it's what you'll be using most with her. Her talent is very important as well for the amount of crit rate you'll gain from it. I'd say for every 2 levels you give her talent, give 1 to her ultimate since you'll be using it a lot to make her enhanced state last longer, or to trigger said enhanced state. Though I think you're better off using it to make it last longer, you're losing out on damage if she's not already in her special state. Her basic attack comes very last. Give it some love here and there because every so often you'll end up using it, but you really want your focus to be on her skill. In fact, when using her, your entire skill point consumption will have to maneuver around using her skill. Unlocking her crit damage traces as you go and as soon as you can will be super beneficial. Generally, if all traces are at level 4 or 5, you can start going for other things. If you don't level her basic attack until later on, get everything else to 5 or 6 and then go for additional traces like her crit damage traces. Now onto her Eidolons. At E1, when using her ultimate or enhanced skill, her crit damage will increase by 24% for 1 turn as if she didn't have enough already. If she's only attacking 1 enemy, the target will receive additional ice damage equal to 100% of her attack. At E2, after using her ultimate, the damage from her next enhanced skill will be increased by 80%. At E3, her ultimate and talent will level up by 2 for a maximum of 15. At E4, during the spectral transmigration state, the attack she gains from consuming allies' HP is additionally increased by 80% of the total HP she consumed from the entire team. The cap for attack gained this way also increases by 30%. At E5, her skill will level up by 2 and her basic attack by 1 for a maximum of 15 and 10 respectively. And at E6, when she enters her spectral transmigration state, the syzygy stack limit will increase by 1 for a total of 4, and she will immediately obtain a stack. While she is in this state, her crit damage increases by 50% as if she didn't have enough already. I feel like I just said a lot of words that are hard to pronounce. Essentially, what all of this means is that you're going to want to use her skill as often as you can because this is what is going to enhance her. When she reaches her enhanced state, she will go from a maximum of 2 stacks to 3, which means that she can use her ultimate immediately to make her enhanced state last longer. Which is personally what I would recommend. You should use her ultimate when she is in her special state because this will boost the damage that you do with her ultimate. Otherwise, you're just losing on damage. And this makes her a very easy character to play. All you do, you wait for her turn, you use her skill, and you wait for her turn, and you use her skill. And at this point, if she uses her skill twice, she's already in her state. So then you use her ultimate, and you use her skill, and you rinse and repeat. However, the tricky part of her kit is hidden in her talent, where she consumes HP from all allies. Oh damn. She will in fact consume 4% of everyone's max HP, which is crazy cuckoo insane, but it's manageable. We'll get back to that. In terms of light cone, of course, her signature light cone is going to be the best one. In fact, her signature light cone is just good. It's just good for anyone, really, I think. It's just a great light cone. Her signature light cone, I shall be my own sword, will increase her crit damage by 20%. When an ally, excluding the wearer, gets attacked or loses HP, the wearer gains 1 stack of Eclipse, up to a max of 3 stacks. Each stack increases the damage of the wearer's next attack by 14%. When 3 stacks are reached, this additionally enables the attack to ignore 12% of the enemy's defense. This effect will be removed after the wearer uses an attack, and this is insane. You basically do nothing, everyone's going to get damaged at some point, whether you use Jingliu or not, and you get a defense shred after 3 times, which is kind of insane. It's a really good light cone, and honestly, I think I would pull for her light cone before pulling for her. Aside from that, On the Fall of a Neon is a great light cone as well, and it's easy to bring to S5 because it's the Herta store one, so this is always a great option. If you have Brighter Than the Sun, this is Danheng Imbibitor Lune's signature light cone. If you have it, it's not bad. It won't apply to her enhanced skill because it's about basic attacks, but it can be good for turns where you're totally out of skill points and she's not in her enhanced state. This is also good for her crit rate, but it's not the one I would recommend the most. Finally, something irreplaceable and the unreachable side. If you have an unreachable side, you probably have Blade. Keep that shit on him. Something irreplaceable is always going to be better for Clara, obviously, but both of these light cones are just not for Jingliu because she's not about losing her own HP, she's about taking HP from other people. Like a meanie. Like a badass. Like a badass! Now for 4-star light cones, Under the Blue Sky is going to be good for crit rate, The Mole's Welcome You is going to be good for attack, Wolf Walk Time is not going to be good. Wolf Walk Time, I wouldn't recommend it unless you pair her with Luca or Gwenaifen. I would not recommend that, so don't. And Secret Vow, Nowhere to Run, don't. Hope that helps. It's also about HP levels, so it doesn't really have to do with her. Finally, 3-star light cones, Collapsing Sky is going to be the best one, if not the only good one, because the 2 other have to do with HP levels. Shattered Home has to do with the HP level of the enemy. I don't know why you would use that one. And Mutual Demise has to do with her own HP level, and you don't want her below 80%, so you don't want that. Personally, I think if you don't have the Fall of a Neon, you should go for The Mole's Welcome You, but if you end up really struggling with her crit rate, you can go for Under the Blue Sky. Her crit rate is a whole thing where you don't need it to be all that high because she's going to boost it on her own when she reaches her enhanced state. And I think you're going to get more value from a crit rate body, which is going to bring you almost exactly to where you need to be, so The Mole's Welcome You is a good 4-star option. Again, this always depends on which one you have more superimposition for. And now on to Relics. For 4-piece sets, Hunter of Glacial Forest will actually go crazy with her signature light cone because you would have an increase of 45% crit damage right off the bat, which brings you to 95 in the best conditions. Add a crit rate body and substats and you're actually good to go, but even without her light cone, this brings you at 75 crit damage after using her ultimate and at 112% with her traces unlocked, so I think that this is a really good kit for her. Also, as often as you can, you want to use her ultimate right as you enter her enhanced state, so again, I think that this is really good. Adjacently, the other pick you could go for is Musketeer of Wild Wheat. This is going to be the better pick between Thief of Shooting Meteor and Wild Wheat. I don't think that this kit is going to be better than Glacial Forest because you don't want your focus to be on her basic attack because her enhanced skill is a skill. So that's kind of just lost value, but if you're early in the game, this is a good option. Now for 2-piece sets. If you don't want the 4-piece benefit of Hunter of Glacial Forest because you're not in love with a buff that's only applicable after using her ultimate, you could go with a 2-piece Hunter of Glacial Forest and a 2-piece Musketeer of Wild Wheat for the best of both worlds. 2 buffs that will be applicable at all times. If you're early game, I'd still recommend Wild Wheat 4-piece the most because the basic attack damage boost isn't completely lost. It's within reason that you'll end up using that basic attack eventually, but if you really don't like the sound of that, go for 2-piece Wild Wheat and 2-piece Thief of Shooting Meteor for again 2 buffs that will be applicable at all times. Just make sure you actually use her against enemies with ice weakness at least, because otherwise the break effect stat does not matter at all. For Planner Ornaments, our best options for a DPS are Inert Salsodo, Rutilant Arena, and Space Stealing Station. She doesn't have a follow-up attack, so Inert Salsodo loses a lot of value, but usually reaching 70% crit rate on Rutilant Arena can be a bit tricky. However, the crit rate boost from her enhanced skill is able to trigger the Rutilant Arena bonus. Therefore, I'd recommend using Rutilant Arena or Space Stealing Station for more attack. Getting her to 70% crit rate won't be hard enough to justify using the kinder Inert Salsodo, so I don't recommend recommend focusing on that. For her main stats and substats, her kit works in a really cool way where she provides crit rate for herself and her traces provide 37.3% crit damage already, so that's a major weight off her shoulders. Her crit rate increase during her enhanced state starts at 30% and maxes out at 50, so you don't need to give her more than 50 to 60% crit rate to reach 100 and have her crit every time she hits when she's in her special state. Most accessible Lightcones will increase attack, so you'll need a crit rate body. If you used Rotolent Arena, you'll only need around 5% to bring her to 50%, and that's either 2 substat that didn't get the roll or 1 that only rolled once, which we know always happens for crit rate and crit damage. This is because a crit rate 5-star body maxed out gives 32.4%. So considering crit rate starts at 5, you're plus 32, that's like 37. If you add 8 from Rotolent Arena, that's 45. You're gonna need around 5. And a singular substat is like 2.5. When it rolls, it's like 5.1. So you just need like 2 pieces with a crit rate substat, or again, 1 that rolled. From that point forward, you want her attack and her crit damage as high as you can get it to be. If you used Space Sealing Station, use a speed boot, otherwise I'd go with attack. Her ultimate is costly, however, I think you're better off with the additional attack instead of an energy regen rope because you want to use her ultimate when you can and you want to time it right, but you don't need it to be available 100% of the time. For the substat, aside from that 1 or 2 crit rate stats, you're looking for crit damage and attack percent. Speed can also be a good one, especially if you don't already have a speed boot on her. If you used a light cone that increases crit rate, you can use a crit damage body and pray that substats bring you close enough to 50% crit rate. Now, 50% crit rate isn't obligatory, obviously. It's just a guarantee that every hit is a crit when she's in her enhanced state, but if you don't reach 50, it's not the end of the world. Now, this is where this is where shit hits the fan. Everything so far seems so perfect about her, but when it comes to teams to build, you're either going to need to build the whole team around her, or you're going to struggle a lot. Because she consumes her allies' HP, you're basically obligated to bring a healer along, or else she will really weaken your team over time. 4% of everyone's max HP really stacks up. It's also hard to bring only a healer, because while you might normally be able to solo sustain with your best healer, you've got one more source of damage to look out for, and this can easily become too much to handle. In my test runs, I found that neither Locha or Fushuan could solo sustain against Ventilia. That's like the Echo of War boss with the most phases, so that's the one I use to measure how long a team can last. I was able to use Fushuan to solo sustain against the Doomsday Beast, but not for Kokolia, whereas normally I know she can do it for both. Also noteworthy, this only worked against the Doomsday Beast because I had Welt with me to slow down the enemy, which means I still ended up needing 2 5-stars just to survive. The most comfortable setup by far was Japard, Locha, and Bronya, but I was also able to make it through with Lynx instead of Locha and Sampo instead of Bronya, because my Tingyun isn't built, even though she really should be, but I brought Sampo for the wind weakness, you know how it be. Aside from Fushuan, I didn't find a good alternative to Japard, which is kind of an issue because this means you can't run a team without a 5-star character for her. Aside from herself, obviously. If you have a really good Locha, because mine is built like ass, and still gets me through everything except this. You could probably have him solo sustain. It's kind of just you're really gonna need to focus on using his ultimate anytime his talent isn't triggered, and you're probably gonna need a regen rope on him for that. I didn't test her with the Fire Trailblazer because frankly mine isn't built, but Fire Trailblazer is the only option for non-5-star preservation. Technically they're a 5-star, but you know it doesn't count, okay? On a positive note, she works really well with both Bronya and Tingyun. Bronya can allow her to get turns more quickly, which is super neat because even if you're at 1 skill point, you can use Bronya's skill to switch to Jingliu, and if Jingliu is in her enhanced state, then she won't need the skill point to do her skill at that moment. I said skill a lot of times. Tingyun will also be super handy to refill Jingliu's energy, so you can get 1 more turn out of her enhanced state in a timely manner. If you don't plan on using someone to buff her damage, consider bringing either Welt to slow down the enemies, which means getting hit less, which means less odds of dying, or either Silver Wolf or Pela for defense shred. Also, Blade is a character who could benefit from her presence on the team, since he kind of thrives off of getting hit and losing HP. I don't have him, but I hear her HP consumption does trigger his follow-up attack count, so that's a fun option. In short, you're gonna need a team built around her for optimal play. I'd recommend Japard over Fushuan because Jingliu doesn't need the crit rate increase, but the whole team really needs the protection from Japard's shield. It's important to keep in mind that she really does consume HP, even if her allies are shielded she bypasses it and she consumes HP. Still, I found a shielder more effective for team survival. You're gonna want to heal her at all times with her, and I think anyone we have currently will do since everyone can heal in AoE in one way or another. However, I really enjoyed Lucha and Lynx as heals. Lastly, I'd recommend either Tingyun or Bronya. They're really gonna bring Jingliu's damage to an insane level, and both have something that mixes well with Jingliu's kit. With all of that said, and by god did I say a lot, is she worth pulling for? Even if you don't know how to say syzygy. Syzygy, enhanced, state enhanced, skill, spectral transmigration, syzygy. I don't tend to favor characters that need a whole team dedicated to their presence, and I know I really made it sound like it was a hassle to play her, but if I wasn't saving for Topaz, I would definitely pull for her. Aside from her design being really cool, she's actually quite the powerhouse. Destruction characters are very powerful and can do both single target and multi-target damage, but she has the added benefit of bringing her own crit rate and crit damage to the table, which I find makes her much easier to build than some other DPS characters. She does need the whole team to revolve kind of around her, but I find that she makes it more than worth it, even if it's not usually my vibe. If you're a beginner player or you don't have any of the 5-star characters I've previously mentioned, particularly Jabard, then I can't recommend her to you. Obviously, if you really love her as a character and you want to pull for her even if you don't have a team ready to go for her, I can't blame you, and it's fine because she works well with standard banner characters anyways, so you're gonna get there like eventually. Other than that, she's really cool and I find her really strong. If you have the characters to build a team around her and you're thinking about getting a new main DPS, I think go for it. She's really cool. I'm definitely gonna pull for her in a couple reruns. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you plan on pulling for her, or perhaps you're saving up for someone. With that said, firing out.